Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the NTI PodTalk. This is the platform where we talk to people in the NTI community, around the NTI community, about what they do here at NTI, how they participate in all the things we offer, as well as we talk about food and health and all kinds of things surrounding nutrition. So today we are speaking with one of our instructors, and Tami is not a brand new instructor, but she's relatively new to the teaching at NTI. I'm struggling because I'm trying to think when exactly, Tami, you started teaching. Maybe you can remember better than I can. So we're going to talk about Tami's background, about her work that she does here at NTI, kind of her passion around food and nutrition. So we're going to get into a lot of really fun conversations. So thank you so much, Tami, for being here today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy day, because I know you are very busy. So thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So do you remember how long you've been here? I'm trying to just think, and I cannot remember.
End of 2019 or the beginning of 2020.
Okay. So
somewhere around that time.
Yeah.
I remember coming and talking to you in the snow.
Yeah.
Every time I came to talk to you, it was snowing.
That's right. All right, great. Well, so let's talk first about your background and what you've done. You've done so many things, really interesting things. So why don't you talk about your background and kind of the, you're bringing that knowledge and skills to your teaching here. So we'd like to hear about what that is.
Perfect. So I started off with degrees in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology. I did research for over 20 years on pathogenic fungus that kills people. And good stuff. It's fun. I have my favorite fungus, everybody does. So I started with that. And then I concurrently, while doing that, started teaching for Kaplan test prep, which most people know for ACT, SAT, and I do all of the pre-med. So I teach biology, biochem, physics, organic chemistry. So I teach for that, and I've been doing that for 22 years now. That's been kind of fun because I have had the opportunity to go teach through that in Qatar, at Cornell Wheel Medical College, and out in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates at Khalifa University. So I've gotten a lot of great experience and great fun in teaching, not only online and in person, but being able to travel and do some of that teaching, which has been amazing. So I met someone through Achieve Systems, which is a health and wellness group in Denver. I met one of your students, and she mentioned to me that you were looking for an instructor, and said, let me tell you about her. And you emailed me right away. I hadn't even gotten home from the meeting with her, and I had an email from you. So that was great. So I talked to you a couple days later, and originally I was teaching anatomy and physiology and weight management and sports nutrition. And the anatomy and physiology, that comes from the background for the MCAT and, working with the human body, which the human body is amazing. As far as I'm concerned. So that was a lot of fun. And then the weight management sports nutrition actually feeds from, I work with, for nutrition wise, I work with a lot of my sister's clients. She owns a Pilates studio. So I work with a lot of her Pilates clients. And she owns a professional ballet school. So I do the nutrition consulting, and I do nutrition courses for all of her dancers, her professional ballet dancers, so that because there are eating issues, unfortunately, in that world. And so she wants to make sure that they all understand what needs to be done to remain healthy so that they can continue to dance. Yeah. So that was a direct feed in from working with some of my sister's athletes. So that was perfect. So it was a
Great.
perfect fit, I think.
Good. Well, so really wide background, but still, always in the science, in the body. I know you've talked to me before about, like the human body is so amazing, and you have a real passion around that.
I do.
Yeah. That's one of the things that drew me to, wanting to pursue having you become an instructor here, particularly for our A&P course, because I think that sometimes people feel like A&P can be dry. I mean, there's not a whole lot of new science coming out in anatomy and physiology. The skeletal system doesn't have a lot of changes that happen
Nope.
in the structure, so some people may tend to feel like A&P can be a little dry or not a lot of new stuff, excitement, but I feel like you have the ability to really bring a lot of excitement and passion to that teaching. How do you do that? What do you draw upon to do that? And where does your passion come from?
I think my passion actually started as a child, because I was always amazed at the things that the human body could do and how we could get sick, but we could get better and we could basically cure ourselves. I grew up with a huge garden in the backyard. So, every time when we were kids, when we said we were hungry, we didn't get sweets, we didn't get things like that. My mother would just point to the door and say, go outside. If you're hungry, go outside. Right. So, very early we learned how different types of foods, and eating lots of fruits and vegetables made us feel, versus a lot of our friends, ate pizza and fast food and things like that. And, when you're a kid and when you're a teenager, yes, you eat with your friends. And, I know I would notice the difference where I'd be like, that tasted really good, but ugh, it feels weird. And my mother always had a passion for the human body as well, because she has a spinal fusion from T3 through L5. So her whole back is fused and she's got no movement in it. So I was always amazed at the fact that she, has lived as long as she has, and that she gave birth to 3 kids with absolutely no movement in her back. Mm-hmm. So I was always amazed by that. I got into genetics as a child. Ever since I was 7, I always wondered, my cousin is half Sioux Indian, Lakota Sioux Indian. And I always wondered from my aunt if she got the blue-eyed gene or the brown-eyed gene. So when I was about 7, I started to wonder that. So there's always a passion for the science and the science of the body and the things that the body does. And I still have that. That's why I love teaching pre-med students, because they're going to be working with the body. And I am loving teaching nutrition students, because a lot of times nutrition is not based in the science of the body. And I love that NTI is based in the science and based in the science of the body, because this is what we're helping people to understand. And if we don't understand the body ourselves, it's very difficult to help other people. So getting that A&P and knowing what the body does with everything, I think is important. And the body's amazing. That's all I've got to say, is the body is amazing.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm totally in alignment with you. And I really resonate with what you said about being a child and having a huge garden out in the background. I grew up in the same sort of situation. It wasn't my mother's garden, it was my grandmother's garden. And we would just forage out in the yard all day long. Yep. And I have a huge garden now. And so I still do that now, but that's how I grew up. And, similarly, I didn't grow up eating a lot of junk food. I mean, the first time I ever went to a fast food restaurant, I was either 20, I was in my early 20s. The first time I ever went to a fast food restaurant. So, I mean, I have I don't know, that may be kind of bad to admit
No,
about
no, that's not
my
bad to admit.
inadequacies. I still, like, I don't know, I didn't know how to order. I didn't really understand how to look at everything on the board, and it's just so confusing to me. So, I think I've only eaten in a fast food restaurant probably 3 times in my life because it's so overwhelming to me. But anyways, um, I think you and I have that similar background, and that probably is what draws us to nutrition. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the love of
Um,
making my own food.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So you teach in the classroom for us. I know for Kaplan, everything you do is online. Certainly now, I know you had done some stuff in person, but for us, you teach in person in the classroom. Can you talk about potentially the differences between teaching online and in the classroom, and what is it about classroom teaching that keeps you wanting to do it? And we're very grateful that you do continue to want to do it. So what keeps you wanting to do that?
It's not, it's the interaction in person with people. When you're online, it's very difficult to know if people actually understand or not, especially if it's in a classroom where you don't necessarily see the people. They're not necessarily on camera because it's a larger class, or whatever that reason is. They have to type in questions, and a lot of the times they don't. And so you don't know actually if they're understanding or not. Whereas when you're in a classroom, you can see people's faces and you can see if they're understanding or not. And they're more willing to ask questions when they see you face to face, when they're in the same room with you, than they are online. But the biggest thing for me is being able to have that interaction, being able to know if someone understands or not, because you can very quickly see on someone's face if there is a question, or if, yeah, they're getting it. So that, I think that's the best part of it, is really being able to have that connection and know that what you're conveying is being received in a manner that is understandable. And if it's not, how to change that, or how to explain it in a different way so that someone understands. So that's my big thing, is seeing people one-on-one, and really knowing that they understand. You can see on their faces, and
Yeah,
that's good.
they light up when they're like, oh my gosh, now that makes sense.
Yep,
They
the
light
aha
up.
moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah, so for those of you who are listening to this or watching this who are not an NTI student, and maybe are a prospective student, I just want to point out that we are, as far as we know, the only nutrition school who still offers in-person training. And I'm old school. I really like in-person learning and in-person teaching as well. Of course, our entire program can be taken online because we do have a lot of students who don't live locally. But for those who do live locally, I really encourage you to try out in-person learning at least once, because there is a difference, and we're here, and we still have the availability and the opportunity to do that. So
Yes, I like it, since everything is changing, and it gives an opportunity that you just don't have, I think, online.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, so a little bit more about you. Now, you said you do nutrition coaching or nutrition counseling for your sisters, Pilates and dancers, her businesses. Do you have other nutrition coaching that you do? Do you have an active practice outside of your teaching, both here and at Kaplan?
Yes. So I have my sister's clients. I'm currently doing a new course for my sister's ballet dancers, because I have a whole course for for in nutrition that's specifically for dancers. So I'm working on a new course for that. And then I do have other clients that are outside of that, either find me on the internet or find me through word of mouth. I actually have one that found me through a biochemistry podcast that I did through Kaplan years ago that I had no idea had been put out on Amazon.
Right.
And so she actually
Still out
found
there
me through
somewhere.
that. Yeah, it's out there, so she actually found me through a biochemistry. She was interested in biochemistry. So we had a 12-session biochemistry podcast, and she found me through that. So I have different ways that I find clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do have an active client base.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. And, we, that is something that we look for in our instructors, that they have an active practice, because then you're teaching all the academics and kind of the theory of, practice. But when you actually have clients that you're working with, you can also bring that application to your teaching. And, I had a client 3 days ago where we were talking about this very subject. And so
Exactly.
It really helps reinforce the academic learning that they're getting, and also give support to the students on clinical application. Like, how do you actually apply what you're learning? So,
exactly.
So that's really helpful. Great. So you talked about you like to cook, you like to eat
Yes.
foods and garden foods. So do you have a favorite food that you like to incorporate in your diet on a regular basis? Or like, what's your go-to if there's something, like, I want to be really well nourished, or this is just something that I really enjoy having? What kind of foods are your go-tos?
So salad is one of my main go-tos. And when I say salad, I mean, I put everything on that salad. That salad's going to have an egg on it. It's going to have chicken on it. It's going to have, some cheese. It's going to have tomatoes. I make very large salads. My husband kind of laughs at me. He's like, what are you going to not put on that salad? But my students that have been in my classes know that one of my favorite go-tos always for everything is pumpkin seeds.
Uh-huh.
is raw pumpkin seeds, because they have a great amount of protein. They actually have more protein than any of the nuts out there. Almonds only have 2/3 the amount of protein for the same amount. They have wonderful minerals. They have great fats in them. And the other thing is I'm allergic to nuts. So, that's going to be my go-to. But one of the things that the two things that I love to do the most with pumpkin seeds, outside of just eating them as snacks, is I love to do pumpkin seed encrusted chicken breast. Because of the thickness of the pumpkin seeds. I grind them up, and it makes it so moist, so soft. Mm-hmm. And you can get kids to eat it. We're having nieces, nephews, friends with kids, they always want chicken nuggets. So I can make these into, I can cut up a chicken breast, make it into strips, make it into small nuggets, roll it in it. And it's similar to that. And if they're very little kids, especially if they're boys, they love it because it's green. So we can talk about what bodily functions could be green, and little boys love that. It's all about getting them to eat things, right?
Yeah.
And then I love to also pumpkin seed encrust eggplant. My husband loves eggplant. And so I just slice it into discs, throw it into some egg, and then coat that. So those pumpkin seeds, I use it for just about everything. I just love the amount of minerals and having zinc in there, having iron in there. And that's so important to make sure that we're getting those micronutrients. And that has so many of them that when I mix it with other things, I know I'm getting everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're one of those who buys pumpkin seeds in bulk, I imagine. Lots of big bags of pumpkin seeds.
I do. Thank goodness Natural Grocer sells them in bags. Yes, yep. I do. I have a container in the kitchen now that I was looking at, and I'm like, oh, it's only half full. That means there's only about 4 cups of pumpkin seeds left. So planning, when I need to go get more pumpkin seeds. And
Yeah,
I actually taught my dad to do the pumpkin seeds and eggplant the other day. So
great.
they now have a new way to eat eggplant,
Yeah.
which is nice.
It's always nice to have new things that are easy to do, taste good. That's what helps people take on new recipes and new ideas in their eating. So that's great.
And I love to, for my YouTube channel for Sage Nutrition, I love to just randomly throw things together. And part of that is to show people that you don't necessarily have to have a recipe.
Yes.
I'll say, okay, this is what I have. Let's see what we can do with it. I've got an acorn squash. I've got this. I don't know if this is going to work. Let's try it. So I like to show people that you can do things outside as well of having a recipe and just trying to put different flavors together that you like and see if they work. Because I was afraid of that for many, many years. If it wasn't on the recipe, I didn't do it. And my husband broke me of that habit. And so now we just throw things together. So I love to do that sometimes on videos.
Yeah. Creativity with food is challenging for some people, and you just got to get over that and just go for it. So yeah, good example of someone who's doing that. So
yep, it's fun.
So what kind of hobbies do you have? I don't know if you have any time to have hobbies, but what kind of hobbies do you have? What do you do?
I do have hobbies. I love to read. But over the last year with COVID, for years I've crocheted, I knit, I actually spin my own yarn from wool. So I do have a spinning wheel, very old fashioned spin, so I do spin my own wool. And for COVID, a lot of what I did was for relaxation was knitting. So over the last year, my mother has gotten 2 pieces. My sister has gotten about 8. I'm working on another one for her right now, and I've gotten a few sweaters that I've made for myself, but most of it's been for my sister. She lives up in Spokane. She loves sweaters. She loves handmade things. So that is very relaxing to me. It's the movement of my fingers and the fact that especially spinning yarn, it's just, I will go into, it's the only way I think I can meditate is spinning yarn. With knitting and crocheting, there is still some meditation there, but spinning yarn is complete meditation. I go someplace else when I do it. So
beautiful.
That's one of my best hobbies.
Nice. Well, I took up knitting for a little while. I can only knit flat things. I can't knit anything that is round or fitted so no sweaters. I tried doing socks. Oh my gosh, not really great at socks.
I don't enjoy that.
I can do flat things. I can do scarves and hot pads. That's about it.
Nice. Yeah, that's my zen. But yes, it's fun. It's fun to knit. I get the socks. I've tried socks before. I have never completed a pair of socks. I have several parts of socks around the house, but I've never actually completed socks. Those don't entertain me.
Yeah, once you get to the heel, I'm like, I can't do it. So I've got a lot of them in process.
Yep. I don't even make it that far. I just get the top part, and I'm like, this is boring, and I move on to something else. So yeah, that's one of my main things that I do. The other one is I like to run with my dog, and I do CrossFit. I like Olympic lifts. So that's the other thing that I do is I like to lift and throw heavy weight around.
Great. Good. Well, you oftentimes wear your Scottish kilt to class.
I do.
And whenever you wear it, I always think of the old Celtic sport of log tossing.
Yeah.
And there you just that just fits right in with your
Yep. So caber tossing is actually one of the sports that I like to watch at the festivals, and believe it or not, there's actually technique to it and how they score it, and there's a historical reason behind it. So yep. I like caber tossing as well. I could never do it, because those are just way too big. But I do watch it, and I do appreciate people who can caber toss.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, this has been so fun. And I don't want to take any more of your time. So, um, uh, can you tell us where people can find you? Website, Instagram? Do you do any kind of social media stuff?
I do. I will be honest, I'm not great with social media. I'm going to be perfectly honest with that.
Yeah.
Very old school. I'm like, can we do a phone call, or can I write you a letter? But I do have a website. It is sagenutritioncoaching.com. I have a YouTube channel under Sage Nutrition. I have Instagram, and then I do have a Twitter account as well. So usually when I do a video for YouTube, I'll immediately just put it on Facebook. I have a Facebook account as well. Facebook, Instagram, and a link on Twitter. So that's where you can find me. So the YouTube channel has got the longest pieces, because sometimes on Instagram it's hard to find the reels and the recordings. So.
And your YouTube stuff is mostly cooking and being in the kitchen, or do you do other things on YouTube?
Other things as well. So I do, one of the things that I like to do, because I do have a science background, I have, written papers for publication, written grants. One of the things I like to do is I'll see something on on TV or on Facebook about, the new miracle patch that you just put on your abdomen and you lose weight. And they'll say, oh, this doctor did this. And I will either try and find it. Sometimes there really are no papers about it. Yeah. And I'll mention that. Or I will find papers about it and I'll talk about the science behind it. And if they're referenced, the papers, I try and explain to people that I look at where funding came from. Right. So I know, especially, and I talk about this with our students, is you really have to know where the funding is coming from, especially in nutrition. And you have to be very careful, because there are a lot of, it looks like it's innocuous, but it's a company that owns, multiple, like PepsiCo or things underneath it, and they just have a bigger name. So that's, that I will always go through and say, this is who funded this. So, either this is great, it's the NIH, it's going to be, it's going to be what it is, or it was a specific company, which means that we might not necessarily want to believe everything that's in there.
Yeah, so you're doing some fact checking.
Yes. Yes, I like to do that as well, and just talk about different things like that. And that actually came up in class yesterday in life cycles and healthy aging, because we were talking about vaccines and some of the criticisms of vaccines and how they're researched and how the long-term research is done. So we were talking a lot about research and how research is published and what it means to have a conflict of interest, that it can mean many, many different things. So just because it says it has a conflict of interest doesn't necessarily mean that it was funded by a pharmaceutical company or something along those lines. So that came into class yesterday a lot with, how can you tell with these studies? So I like to do that, because a lot of people hear things or hear you should eat this and not that. I like to come at things from a scientific perspective, so people know the why. Yeah. Behind things, because we're all 3-year-olds in our head. We started asking why when we were 3. We still ask why in our heads. We just may not verbalize it. So I want to make sure that people have the opportunity to find out why, and if they have questions, they can ask me. Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that we talk about that is perhaps unique about our school. We not only tell you what to do, we tell you the why behind it. So that is something that we're always striving to do, is explain the why of things. So
exactly, which is another reason that this is such a good fit, because being in science for the last 30 something years, that's me. Is I'm that 3-year-old. I'm always asking why. Yeah, I still do that all the time.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tami. Really great conversation. Thank you so much for being an instructor here, and the the knowledge and the passion that you bring to our students. I really appreciate it, truly. So thank you.
You are welcome, and I appreciate working with you and working with the students as well.
Great.